Disclaimer, I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a preacher. I'm a bit of a court jester and a clown. A broken one, because I'm real moody too, so it's... All right.
You're right in.
Good, good. I want to sit, but I'll do something like this. Gosh, man. I thought about in the very limited time I had to prepare for this morning. I thought about what story I could possibly tell you, and hundreds of millions of them are racing through my mind when I landed on the only story that I really know, and that's the story of me. So I promise I'll keep it brief, exciting, thrilling. You're going to be up changing seats in a moment. Just kidding. Anyways, I'll keep it brief. It's a 56-year story I'll try to tell in just a few minutes. I'll start by saying I grew up in upstate New York.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a real small town. And I spent my youth riding my bike around the whole time. It was one of those kind of towns where you could leave the house in the morning and say, "Mom, I'll be home for lunch." And she'll be like, "All right, kid." And different time. This was back in the early 80s. I was born in '69, so by the time I was riding my bike around town by myself, it was the 80s. But I spent time skipping rocks into Lake Ontario, wondering what was on the other side. I would go to the movies all the time because my older sister managed a movie theater. One of two movie theaters in the town. She managed one, and her boyfriend managed the other. So I got to see movies for free all the time. All the popcorn you could eat. So in one of the theaters, it was built like a 1940s sort of Art Deco, and it had the big stage with the red plush curtains and the lights. And so when there was no one in the movie theater, I would ask my sister to turn on the stage lights, and I would walk up on stage and pretend. I pretended to be a singer, some sort of performer, and I would literally dream up my life on that stage. So 1985 rolled around, and my mother got a phone call, and it was my father, whom I had never seen or never met before. Did not know this man, and he said, "Hey, how about you send Chris to Texas to live with me for a summer?" And I was not part of that phone call. I was just told afterwards, "You're going to Texas to live with your father for a summer." And so I was filled with my mother. Now you have to understand, my mother never talked well about my father. So I grew up all these years going, "Oh God, what's going to happen to me? Like, what is about to happen to me?" And I got here. By the way, I bought a cowboy hat and cowboy boots because I thought I was headed to a town full of tumbleweeds and cactus. Because I was in upstate New York, and the only thing I knew about anything remote in this area was a crunchy taco shell. And that's the truth. Yes, please. I like as much piano tinkling as possible. Get us all through this crazy mess. So I found out very quickly, as in the car ride back from the airport to my father's house, that these were very, very religious people. My father and my stepmother were very religious. One of the first things they said to me was, "I can't wait for you to meet Jesus." And, you have to understand, at that time, I had spent 15 years playing stickball with my friends, and the only thing I knew about church was there's a Catholic church that let us spray paint a strike zone. Yeah, like in baseball, you have a little strike zone. And so we would wet a tennis ball and throw it against the side, and we could see where it was, if it was a strike or a ball. And so all you needed was really 3 people, a pitcher, a batter, and an outfielder. So we would use the Catholic church parking lot as our playground. So Catholics are cool with me. Yeah, I was fine with that. So now all of a sudden I'm inundated into this contemporary church world of the 80s, the mid-80s, Christianity. And it was church 3 times a week, Bible studies, endless youth group events. And I would honestly go just to try to meet girls because I didn't know any girls at that time. That was meant to be kind of funny. Probably didn't land right. As a 16-year-old kid, that's all I cared about was music and girls. So it was kind of crazy. I got soaked in the Christian lifestyle. There'd be speaking in tongues 1 minute, reading from Bible passage the next minute. Some of it was very beautiful. Some of it kind of soaked into my soul as a very impressionistic young kid. And then we would get home. And I even hate to use the word home because it never really felt like a home to me. I'd get back to my father's house, my father and my stepmother, and there would be this world of sort of silence. And it's tough for me to tell this story because I feel like I'm going to out people that I don't necessarily want to out, but in order to tell my story, I have to I have to give you the goods. So my father became, well, he was this very sort of physically abusive, between what he did physically and then what he did verbally, I just felt like I was under this sort of umbrella, this sort of massive lead umbrella that I couldn't escape from. And I was wondering how I got here, and I would be calling my mother and sister every time my father left the house, and I'd be like, I want to come back, I want to come back. Now, it turns out, I didn't find out until so many years later that the reason why my mom sent me to Texas was not just to live with my father, but because she just couldn't afford me. She just couldn't, I was the last in line of 6 children, and I was sort of this, times were really, really tough for her. But of course I didn't know that. I grew up in this, I had sort of a wistful youth experience. I never missed the fact that I didn't have a dad. I got to do all the things I love to do. And so I was, as a 16-year-old kid, very confused, very broken. Church at that time was super, they were afraid of anything they didn't understand. This is from my perspective. So they had me burn all of my albums in a bonfire for Jesus. Now, I don't mind telling you the story. It's that evil-eyed monster camera, not you. The camera itself, that's the one just be gentle with me. My story. So it was a very strange time. It would be different if it was like, hey, I'm listening to Slayer or All Hail Satan and all that kind of, it was just like Men at Work and Duran Duran. Yeah. It's stuff from the radio. Casey Kasem's Top 100, do you remember that? Okay. All right, so we're on the same page. So these kind of things were sort of ripped from my life, and it was replaced with church hymns and congregational sing-alongs. And when you're listening to Pink Floyd, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. And now you're having to go, how great thou art, and you're like, what planet did I land upon, exactly. So it took me a while to kind of figure out my bearings in this Christian world, especially because there was such darkness at home. You know, you hear God is love at church, and then you hear something else, and you feel something else, and there's this sort of oppression. And so I became sort of a liar to get myself out of the trouble I was always in. But I wasn't a very good liar, so I get in more trouble for the lies. That's followed me all the days of my life. So, it was just a crazy existence. And I felt like this sort of crazy black sheep of the family. I thought I was just this bad kid. The Bible was used as sort of a weapon against me. All the scriptures taken out of context to fit my life and my situation, and I'm just like, it was a really crazy time. But to fast forward it a little bit, I had a secret weapon, and that secret weapon was music and art. And it was not only a weapon of love, but it was a shield against all of the chaos and the confusion of the church world and my father. And I was able to take all of my confusing thoughts, all of the questions I had about Jesus, all of the wonderful things that were soaked into my spirit in some of these youth group meetings, and all the things I didn't understand and didn't, as a young teenager, I wrote all this stuff in journals, and I drew it all out, and I painted paintings, and I kind of saved all those things. I stored them up. They're in my own little private collection. And then one day, I met a friend who let me borrow his 12-string acoustic guitar. Now, for those of you who don't play guitar, most guitars, the standard guitar that you normally see, like this one, is 6 strings. So to have 12 strings is double the strings. And it's harder for your little fingers to get a hold of 12 strings than it is 6 strings. But I managed to somehow learn 3 or 4 chords on that guitar. And then I would take my crazy little ramblings in my journal and start to, and most of them were like, the first ones were usually like, oh baby, why don't you love me? Like, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't think I've ever talked to a girl. Oh baby, don't you see me here in the corner of the pizza shop? It's like that. It's like that kind of stuff. Probably better than the stuff I'm writing now, but anyways. So I had these little secret weapons, and I'm going to fast forward now, 50 years. 50 years of living a creative life, traveling all over the place, singing my songs, painting my paintings, doing the creative life. And in those 50 years, I would get these massive mood swings because I wanted to fill rooms and have people come see me, and then they go tell other people, and then they all come see me, and then pretty soon it was a packed house, and pretty soon they couldn't fit, so I'm there for 2 nights now instead of just 1 night, and I wanted it to be a building, and when that wasn't happening, and my songs weren't being played on the radio, and I wasn't getting asked to be on David Letterman or Conan O'Brien, because I had friends that were. So I would go into these little drips of jealousy, which is just so uncool. Like, jealousy just kills you. You have no reason to be jealous over anybody in this world, but that's a whole other story. So I would go into these weird mood swings of being super jealous and, why not me? Why? And then to being super grateful. And it would just be this roller coaster ride for 50 years. So a couple weeks ago, one of my half-sisters, I'm an only child between my mother and my father, and all my other siblings are half-siblings on my mother's side. My half-sister loses her husband of 37 years. We don't talk much, but I felt like now is the time to not send a direct message on Facebook, but to give her a call. So I had to track down her number from my other sister, and I call her up. I said, Debbie, I'm so sorry. First of all, I'm sorry that we haven't been in touch. Don't take it personally. I'm my own little traveling minstrel. I don't feel like I belong to any family. I'm doing my own thing. It's not a personal thing. But how are you? I'm so sorry to hear about John. And she begins to pour out her heart for over an hour. And I just listen and listen. And I barely know this woman. It's like talking to somebody that's from another family or something. And so she begins to tell me all sorts of heartbreaking and incredible things. But then after she talks about all of that, she says, Chris, now that I have you here, I feel like I have to tell you some things about your father. And are you open to receive them? Now, how to make this story not eternal. A few years ago, I decided I'm going to, you know how like okay, picture a spaceship in outer space, and then the astronaut is working on a spaceship, okay? And he's got that lifeline, and he's floating in space, and there he is, and the spaceship's in trouble, and it's beyond repair, and you have him trying to work on it. That's the way I felt. I felt like my father was this massive spaceship. It was beyond repair in my life. And nothing we've ever tried seems to work. And I was attached by this little cord, and I just felt like I'm going to detach. Now is the time to detach. And just not have hatred, not hold him in my heart as this overwhelming, looming, oppressive figure, but just cut the cord and flow away. And my life got so much more peaceful. I was able to focus more on my own heart so I could focus more on how to love my wife and her kids and family, now our kids. And I'm like, all right. It's not that I forgave him years ago, but it felt good to finally be free from this toxic thing I was trying to force together, you know. So Debbie ended up telling me things that he did to her, my other sisters, my brother, when they're in this house. I won't go into any specifics or details, but it was pretty shocking and horrific. And for the first time in 56 years of living, I realized this was not about me. All of this stuff I had to endure had nothing to do with me. And I was able to have empathy for people, my half-brothers and sisters that I barely knew. And my heart was broken for them, that they had to endure what they had to endure. And I have one sister who's schizophrenic, another sister who is just broken. And I realized at that moment, and that phone call, that all the years of playing music and all of the so-called failures of trying to become famous or trying to get a single on the radio or trying to impress people or fill a room with my, you know, at my live shows, none of that mattered at all, because these were gifts given to me to heal myself, to keep myself from going insane, to keep myself from living a life of drugs and alcohol. Because I know I would have gone that route. I know I would have. And it was the greatest gift to wake up to that fact, because I feel like in all of us are things that were planted in us when we were formed. And we have to find that thing. It may not be something as obvious as music and art. Those are beautiful outward things, but there's gifts. There's gifts on how to be a great mother and a great father. And there's gifts on how to be an empathetic person. There's gifts listening. You can listen to someone that you completely disagree with and not argue with them. There's so many different gifts in this world that are just as important, and we all have them. It's being aware and alert and spending time in our own spirit so we can recognize them when they arrive. So 56 years of being able to put all of my strange, warped, weird thoughts into song and paint my strange paintings. If you've seen any of my paintings, you'll go, well, I don't know, I don't get it. It's not for you to get, unless you get it. And unless you get it, then it's for you. But that's my message today, is just take care of your spirit, spend time with yourself, and don't worry about what you don't have, because it'll make you bitter. It'll make you jealous. But take what you do have and what you're aware of and give it away all the time. Just give it away. And the reward is looking back on a life where you know you've given yourself away all along the way. Thank you.
Now concludes our time of meditation. Chris is going to sing behind us while we do this. Everybody get centered. Get your feet on the floor. Thank Chris for such a beautiful, unifying story.
Cast your sweet light on me. Cast your sweet light on me.
Take a deep breath.
Cast your sweet light on
And let's remember, we are light.
me. Sweet light on me.
You've come here, I have come here, we have all come here with gifts. And as Chris said, let's give it away. But before you give it away, you have to own it. So let's take a deep breath. See your gift, even if you don't want to. You all have one. We all have one. So own your gift. Hold it in your heart. Know that the struggles that you have endured and everyone has, that these are simply pieces of life to bring you to now, to bring us here. And as the world spins wildly out of control, understand it's all in perfect order. It is beyond our understanding, but we know we are one. Our job here is to be the light. right now